Not too bad. So are we debating on here, or can we call privately and debate?
Here would be better. I don't want to do it privately because I want it to be publicized so that people know I actually did it.
You want to edify the people, educate the people.
Hang on, just let me speak. I paid $50.
Yep.
So
go for it.
If you want a proper debate, you need to have my opener opened up.
You can just read it to us, or you can post it in the Discord chat.
So you have my opener ready?
Sure. Let's say yes. Go for it.
Okay, no. Well, then what's the first 3 words of my opener then?
Something about colors.
No, it's something about shapes.
Damn it. I had a 50-50 on that one. So just go for it. Make your argument. What is your argument?
No. I need to know that you've read my opener.
I haven't
because
read it.
I want to You haven't read it?
No. You
said to me that you will not try to debunk my message without me paying you first. So you clearly have read it.
No. You paid me. I'm here to debate. I didn't read it, though. I know that you said colors and shapes prove God somehow. I don't know how you got to that conclusion, though.
Okay, so I'll just start from the start. So are you listening?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So shapes exists, therefore the universe is finite, therefore God created the universe.
Okay.
That's the first sentence. Hang on, this is my opener, so I'll just give me another 30 seconds.
Sure.
So using deduction, eternal or from nothing, infinite matter cannot move. So that addresses the Big Bang in a non-theistic worldview. So that's cosmology/logic. So shapes proves God, and colors proves God of the Bible. But we'll jump to that theological discussion later. So what is your response to my first 2 messages?
Well, actually, I'll start with the question. How do shapes prove the universe is finite?
Because an infinite universe can't have more particulars inside of itself. You know what a shape is, sir?
Yeah, a shape is an abstract description of objects.
A shape is a 3-dimensional object with height, depth, and width. So your vessel is a shape.
Well, no, because there are 2-dimensional objects like squares and circles, so it doesn't need to be 3-dimensional. I know what a shape is, but again, a shape is a description of an object. If you mean like do physical objects exist? Yes, physical objects exist. Is that what you mean by shape?
We are in 3-dimensional space. What consists in the space are objects, finite objects.
Sure, yes.
Yes, so therefore, using empirical evidence, we know that the universe is finite. Do you know what finite means?
Yeah, finite means it has a beginning. It's not eternal. So you're saying the Big Bang, right? The Big Bang is the beginning something?
No, that's just an assertion. My second sentence that
so I'm trying to see how you get from shapes to not infinite. So for example,
just let me address your first point.
Okay.
You asserted the Big Bang.
Well, no, that was a question. That was a question. I was asking, is that your evidence for why it's eternal? So if that's not what you're using, I'm trying to figure out what are you using to say the universe isn't eternal? How do shapes get us to a non-past eternal universe? For example, you can have a universe with shapes that just existed past eternally. Why would that be a problem?
So there will be no movements in an eternal and infinite universe. The universe had a beginning.
Wait. So you can have a universe that's past eternal and has movement and has shapes. Why would that be a problem?
Hang on, you're not making any sense. So just to address your first point about the Big Bang.
Well, no, the Big Bang wasn't the point.
Hang on, sir. Let me respond. You made the assertion of the Big Bang. Naturalists, non-theists are still stuck at 0 because an infinite structure of matter can't move to get the Big Bang. What is your response to that?
Again, the Big Bang was a question. So I was asking you, is that what you meant by the universe had a beginning? So if it's not what you meant, that's totally fine. That was not a point I made. It was just a question. So when my question is how exactly do shapes imply that the universe had a beginning? Because you can have shapes and you can have change in a perfectly eternal universe. Those don't mean the universe had a beginning.
Hang on, you're eluding or dodging my question. Is that, well, my previous statement is that in the worldview of a non-theist, infinite matter cannot move to get the Big Bang. They're stuck at zero.
No one thinks that. So no one atheist thinks that. So that doesn't represent our position at all.
Well, that's okay. Well, then you need to elaborate on your assertion.
Okay, so again, my assertion is a universe can exist with matter and shapes and change eternally. That's my position.
No, that's my second sentence debunks your claim.
Okay, how? Explain how.
You can't have, in infinite matter, you can't have finite shapes inside of itself. So, for example, a brick. Take a look at a brick. Do you think a brick can have more particulates inside of itself without a outside intervention?
I don't know what that means. Like, bricks definitely have more particles inside themselves than the number of bricks. I don't know what you mean.
But of different particulates. For example, hydrogen and helium. So to go back to my original point, is that in the false worldview of a non-theist, infinite matter cannot move to get the Big Bang.
So again, I'm not following your argument here. So yes, we can, in a naturalistic universe, we can perfectly well have infinite matter and it can move and it can create Big Bangs. There's no contradiction there.
No, infinite means at all places at the same time. There's no boundaries.
No, that's not what infinite means. So
yes, it does.
No. So for example, you can have infinite numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's lots of space between the numbers. Like you could have 1.5, 1 3/4, or whatever. So you can have infinite can just mean the numbers. What?
I'm gonna debunk your claim again.
Go for it.
I'm assuming you're referring to pi.
No, I'm just numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's the radius of a circle. Pi is an irrational number
because
the hang on, sir.
I'm not saying pi. I'm saying just numbers, like standard numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's an unlimited regress, not an infinite regress.
It's not. Regress means backwards. So numbers go up. That's not a regress. That's an infinite. So I don't know what you mean, because infinite does not mean it occupies everything. That's not what infinite means. Infinite just means it's an uncountable set. So for example, you can have...
No, that's what unlimited means, not infinite, sir.
What?
Infinite is a set value. You're referring to an unlimited set of numbers. That's why you need a line. That's why you have to draw a line in between the decimals.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and Google this. Infinite definition mathematics. Infinite is a quantity or state, a quantity of endlessness or having no limits. Infinite definition math in general, infinity is a quantity or state of endlessness or having no limits.
I don't know where you get your sources from, but that's an unlimited value you're referring to.
Oh, okay.
Not an infinite value. But look, that's not what you're trying to allude from my original point.
Well, I don't know what your point is. So your argument was.
Well,
let me see if I can steel man you. So your argument is that shapes in a finite universe prove that shapes and movement in a finite universe prove that a naturalistic universe has to have a beginning. I think that's your point, right? Something like that?
No, this is why I said to you from the beginning, can you have my opener set up?
Well, your first sentence doesn't make sense.
So I don't have to reiterate my sentences.
Well, no, the sentences don't make sense. So even if I read the paper, it would still not make sense.
Look, I paid you $50.
Yes, go for it.
So can you just
go for it.
Finish? So shapes exists. Therefore, the universe is finite. Therefore, God created the universe. What is your response to that?
That isn't an argument. So
that's just your opinion.
No, an argument is something that the conclusion follows from the premises, right? Would you agree to that?
So I'll ask you a clarifying question.
Sure.
In the false worldview of a non-theist, what would you see beyond the edge of the universe?
More natural stuff that isn't the universe.
More natural stuff. So what would you
Yes.
see beyond that more natural stuff, sir?
Just more natural stuff forever.
So and what would you see beyond that, sir?
More natural stuff forever.
So that's why you're referring to unlimited, not infinite. So therefore, and hang on, I'll ask you another clarifying question. Is that natural stuff you asserted, is that infinite in size?
Yes.
It's infinite in size.
Yep.
So therefore, there was no edge to begin with in a non-theistic worldview. So therefore, you're stuck at zero. That infinite matter cannot move. That goes back to my second sentence.
So it was never zero, that's true, but it was always infinite. So it was always moving, it was always infinite. It didn't have a beginning moving.
If it was always moving, that would mean that it's finite. That would mean that it has an edge. So then that goes back to the original question, is that what is beyond the edge of the universe in a non-theistic worldview?
No, always moving does not mean it has an edge.
It predicts yourself, so you're still stuck at zero, sir.
You haven't shown that movement means edge. So it can have a movement and not have an edge. That's perfectly fine.
If for anything to have movement has an edge. So, because what would you see in a non-theistic worldview beyond that edge?
No, so movement does not mean an edge. So you keep saying that movement means edge. There is nothing that means movement means edge. You don't need an edge to have movement. That's not the case.
So to go back to my second point, because that's just an assertion which can easily be debunked.
Okay, how do you debunk it?
There is no Big Bang in a non-theistic worldview because infinite matter can't do anything. So what is your response to that?
That no one in physics thinks you're right. They all think there's infinite matter and it can create the Big Bang just fine. So I don't know.
That's just another assertion.
Do you want the papers? Like Sean Carroll's debate with William Lane Craig, where he just literally came up with 30 models that all do that. I don't know.
And you don't know why are you appealing to authority? Because you don't know the consensus.
Well, you said...
And that's a fallacy. Hang on, that's a fallacy.
No.
Because data is available for everyone. And you don't know if these physicists are apatheists or Satanists to begin with. Why? So you can't just appeal to one authority.
Right, I didn't. I said Sean Carroll showed 30 different models. So he's not like, he didn't come up with them. He just showed, here are the 30 different models that are in physics. And they all say the universe is past eternal with just natural physical stuff. And there is no, and it has movement, and it all created the Big Bang. None of them have a problem.
That's just an assertion. You may just be making that up as you go along.
Yeah, you don't take my word for it. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go. Wait. I want to prove to you I'm not making it up. So you said I'm making this up. Well, you can go. Wait. You can go to.
Hang on, sir. You're appealing to one individual. You don't know if that individual is a apatheist or a Satanist.
No. Again, I'm not appealing to one individual.
Appealing to authority doesn't go anywhere.
No. So again, I'm appealing to a person who has a list of resources of academic peer-reviewed papers that all say what I'm saying on his website. You can go to his website. You can find all of these references of all of the peer-reviewed academic papers that show this to be the case. So it's not just this one guy. This one guy is just a resource that shows more of the papers.
But I could do that same thing. I could just appeal to theists who say that the Big Bang has many problems. So that appealing to authority doesn't get you anywhere.
Well, no. So you said you said it cannot be the case that an infinite universe with shapes and matter can have past eternal. And if I can show you authorities in the field that show yes, it can be the case, that proves you wrong. So it is a possibility. Now you don't need absolute agreement on that just to show it's a possibility. So if you say it's impossible, and I can show experts in the field say actually it is possible, that disproves you.
No, I can't follow what you're saying because you're circumventing. So to go back to my original point, eternal or from nothing. So this I'm referring to the worldview of a non-theist. So eternal or from nothing.
No one believes from
infinite
nothing.
Matter cannot move. It cannot move, sir.
Yes, it can.
There's no, and it hang on. It cannot move to get the Big Bang, and it cannot move to make more shapes inside of itself.
Yes, it can.
Therefore, that's just an assertion. Therefore, the universe had a beginning because of the empirical evidence around us.
So in my universe, I'm a naturalist. I think that matter can exist and shapes can exist and change can exist eternally. My model does that. That's your opinion on that it can't is your assertion. You have not proven that it can't. So prove that it can't.
But we are living in the same universe. Shapes exist.
Yes, shapes exist. I agree. Shapes exist. Or just matter exists. So, and that's fine. And you can have that eternally with change, and it can create the Big Bang. No problem. Prove it can't.
No, that's just another assertion.
No, you're asserting it can't.
I'm going to hang on. Infinite matter. So, for example,
you're repeating yourself. You're repeating yourself. So wait. I need clarification here. So you keep asserting that it can't. You need to prove that. You need some evidence to support that.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I'm going to explain it to you.
Okay.
So this is, for example, a brick. So a solid brick, a solid shape. So a brick would be a solid shape. So how do you get more finite particulars inside a solid brick without an immaterial and omnipotent consciousness?
If the brick already had them, that would be how?
No, I'm talking about new particulars.
If the particulars already existed eternally and they combine together, then you can get them just fine.
But there's no movement in that brick.
Yes.
So you can't see what you're trying for the audience listening.
What
Tom is alluding here is that he's saying that the universe, all the stars and planets have already existed.
No.
In that false worldview, hang on, sir. In that false worldview, there will be no movement in infinite space.
No. So
that's why we have the brick analogy.
No, there's this thing called vacuum states where virtual particles can pop in and out of existence through all space and all time, everywhere. There's movement. What?
That would require a process because for something to pop into existence on its own, there's no room for things to pop into existence by itself. There would be a process to it.
Right.
There would be a step to it, like a 1, 2, 3. It wouldn't just pop into existence instantly.
Yes. So there's this thing called vacuum states, which are a product of Hilbert space, and Hilbert space has fluctuations which produce virtual particles. Those are the steps 1, 2, 3. They're all in a natural world. They can exist eternally and have change and create the Big Bang.
Well, that would hang on. No, you're addressing. You jump from you shifted from gear 7 all the way down to 0. So to address your assertion that things can just pop into existence.
Yes.
There's no room. There's no room in already infinite occupied space for things to pop into existence. If that was the case, that things popped into existence, that would be God doing it, because there would be a process, a gradual process. 1, 2, 3. It wouldn't just pop into existence. So.
Right, so space isn't infinitely occupied. Most of it's empty space. And in empty space, you have this thing called the Hilbert field. And the Hilbert field can produce virtual particles that pop into existence from fluctuations in the Hilbert field. It's not infinitely packed. Infinite does not mean there's stuff everywhere. It's not what it means. So there are particles in some places and not in other places. And the virtual particles can come into existence in the places where there are not particles.
Look, you're trying to allude from my second sentence, but to address your assertion of empty space, empty space has height, depth, and width. So even if you assert your analogy of space is like me walking into a room and saying there's a lot of empty space in this bedroom, but the bedroom still exists. So your assertion of empty space is actually something because it is 3-dimensional. It is infinite in size.
Well, space is a thing, yes, but it's not because it has size. But I don't see why you think that's an argument. So something has always existed.
No. That's hang on. Wait. So you made this argument, but I just want to know, because I may get a laugh out of this. in a false worldview of a non-theist, what would empty space look like, sir?
It's empty space. It looks like Hilbert space.
What does it look like? What color does it have attached to it, sir?
It doesn't have any color because it doesn't reflect light.
So no, but you would still the law of identity. You have to identify it for you to make that assertion that it's empty. So what does empty space look like, sir?
It's a Hilbert field.
And what does that field look like, sir?
It doesn't reflect light.
So you still have to identify something for you to come to that conclusion.
Right.
So what does it look like?
So not everything that exists reflects light, so you don't have to see everything for it to exist. Like we don't see neutrinos. They don't reflect light, but they still exist just fine.
But you still see colors. That's the point I'm trying to get across, is that for you to identify something, there is a color attached to it.
No,
that's
there's
the law of identity.
Neutrinos have no color.
Look, I don't want to go down this.
No, you keep saying that to identify something you need colors. Like, no, you don't. You do not need colors to identify things.
For your assertion of empty space, but to go back to my original point, that I'll just reiterate my first sentence for the listeners. The shapes exists, therefore the universe is finite, therefore God created the universe.
Yes, and none of that makes sense. So you can't say therefore. An argument, you need premises and the conclusion. So a premise is all men are mortal. Premise 2, Socrates is a man.
I gave you a premise, sir.
What's the premise?
Look, I don't want to. You're trying to allude. I gave you a premise. Shapes is not a presupposition.
What's the
Shapes
premise?
is all around you.
What's the premise?
Shape. A shape has height. Is a three-dimensional object.
Shape isn't the premise.
Empirical evidence
is also not a premise. So a premise is all men are mortal. That's a premise.
Look, so you can't elude or refute what I'm telling you.
Well, you're right. I have no idea what you're saying.
I'll just reiterate, because what I'm saying is that because the universe is finite, God, who is infinite in size, exists inside and outside the edge of the universe.
Okay,
and God and God would have to be non-physical to interact with the physical universe to make stars and planets.
So again,
there's no getting around that fact.
Well, that's not an argument. So a premise is a sentence that can be true or false.
That's just another assertion.
That a premise is a sentence that has to be true or false. So that's the definition of premise. So shapes, if that's a sentence.
You don't know what a shape is. Hang on, I'm not going to let you. I paid $50.
Sure, I don't know what a shape is.
Having this debate on a private call.
No, not private. Definitely not. It was planned to be on a show.
So look. So
what do you think a shape is?
A shape would be your head. Your head has height, depth, and width. So shapes exists. Therefore, the universe is finite. Therefore, God created the universe.
Wait, so my head is a shape?
No getting around that.
My head is a shape. That is. You're saying my head is a shape.
Your head has dimensions.
Yes, it has dimensions, and so you're saying just anything with dimensions is a shape. That's.
Look, I could just use the word objects instead. Okay. It doesn't matter how
I'm just trying to be clear here. So
from empirical evidence, you can't deny.
Okay, so objects make sense. So when you say shape, I think of like squares and circles and triangles, like abstract objects. So that didn't make sense to me. So if you're saying objects exist, yes, I'm with you. Objects exist in the universe.
Okay. I'll use objects instead.
Okay, so objects exist.
I'll reiterate my first sentence. For you and the listeners, objects exists, therefore the universe is finite, therefore God created the universe. Okay. So that's just basic logic, and those 12 words comports with the laws of thermodynamics, it comports with the law of cause and effect, and it comports with Hubble's law, etc., etc.
Okay.
So you can't, and empirical evidence.
So there is no such thing as the law of cause and effect. That you'd probably Google that one. But there's a bigger problem here: is that shapes exist is true. Yes, I agree. Objects exist for sure, But you didn't say, because objects exist, how does that show God? Or how does that show the universe had a beginning?
That shows that the universe is finite. And for something to be finite had a beginning.
Well, no.
And
how?
beyond that, hang on, sir.
No,
and beyond
you skipped a step. So you said objects exist, the universe is finite. So how does objects existing prove that the universe is finite?
Because an infinite universe can't have more particulars inside of itself, because there is no movement in already occupied three-dimensional
you said
space.
A universe can't have more particulars inside of itself. What
in the false worldview of a non-theist, this goes back to my second sentence, that infinite matter can't move.
Why?
There's no shift from 0 to 1 in already infinite matter. There's no Big Bang in a non-theistic worldview.
So right, matter didn't exist, but the Hilbert space did exist. So energy existed, and energy can malform into matter. So you can go from energy to matter perfectly fine.
Yeah, well, okay, if you make that assertion, that's the second law of thermodynamics, that energy can convert into matter, but you're still stuck at zero.
Well, there is never zero energy.
No, I'm talking about the time. I'm referencing time. So you're still the non-theists are stuck at zero because infinite material cannot move to get the Big Bang.
What? So
there's no, you can't. I was going to say.
So again, there was not infinite material. There was never infinite material. There was infinite Hilbert space and energy. That's perfectly fine, and energy can form into matter just fine. No problem.
No, because that assertion of you saying space, that space is the infinite structure of matter because it consists of height, depth, and width. So your assertion of because that space, that assertion you made of space would be infinite in size, it would be eternal, it would be non-physical, and it would be three-dimensional. So that actually comports with the Bible. So that would be God.
God
because
is
if it's
space.
not infinite, that means it's finite. So something else exists with that finite particular.
No. So again, there's no contradiction with saying there is just a natural universe, and there is a natural thing that exists eternally, infinitely, or outside of space and time if you want. That's not a problem either. Both of those can exist naturally, and you don't need a conscious mind for that. So you can just be nature, just energy. That's it. That's all you need.
You do need a conscious mind because when you close your eyes, your thoughts have no boundaries. We are made in God's image. Hang on. We are made in God's image. So, and you can test this out for yourself. When you close your eyes, you can visualize anything. And your thoughts have no boundaries to it.
Wait, I can't visualize a square circle.
That explains, God could just change the assigned values of it. But that explained God's infinite size.
So I can't imagine anything. That's false. Like I can't imagine anything. I don't know even if I could imagine anything that wouldn't be evidence of a God. So how does the fact I can imagine stuff?
No, hang on, sir. I'm just explaining infinite size. We can test this out ourselves because when we visualize things in our mind, they have no boundaries.
What are you talking about? Yes, they do.
So to go back to my second sentence.
No. Explain that more, because you said when we visualize things in our minds, they have no boundaries. Like, yes, they do. Things in our minds definitely have boundaries. What are you talking about?
No, I can visualize something and I can keep pushing it back and back and back in my mind. There's no end to it.
Okay. I don't get what do you mean by that? Like,
I'm just giving you. It's just a way. I'm just making it simple for those listening themselves to understand God's infinite size, His omnipresence.
So we can say nature is omnipresent and exists infinitely, and no problem. Without
no, because that's what I was going. That's exactly what I was going to get back to. My second sentence, that infinite matter cannot move.
Yes, sure can. Prove infinite matter can't move.
Take a brick. Again, that
brick isn't infinite matter.
Cannot move to make more particulars inside of itself.
A brick isn't infinite matter. Infinite matter can move, and it can change.
I'm giving you an example.
I don't see how your example makes no sense. Well, then, bricks are finite things. They aren't infinite. Bricks can change. There is vacuum space inside of them where they can generate new particles. The particles in bricks break down to present new particles all the time. Not a problem.
But that makes it even worse for yourself, because if the brick was infinite, it still can't move to make more particulars inside of itself.
The particles in the bricks are moving.
You've lost. Hang on, sir. I've had this discussion with hundreds of people. They lose. The apathia Satanists. They lose at the very first sentences.
Okay, so bricks are moving. Bricks are moving just fine. All the particles in bricks are moving. What are you talking about?
I know what you're doing here. You're eluding, but for the people listening, I have had this discussion with many people, and they all express their opinions and their hate after the first two sentences. So what Tom is doing here is
I still have no idea what you're saying.
He's trying to give the impression that God has to take like 30 minutes to debate. All it takes is like under 30 seconds.
So I still have no idea what you're saying. So again, bricks are moving just fine. The particles in bricks generate new particles all the time. I have no idea. Like if everything in the universe was completely stationary, right, that couldn't create new particles, but it's not. The universe is moving just fine. It always has been.
You're not fooling me, sir. So I'll just reiterate my first two sentences. So this is going back to the start. Objects exist, therefore the universe is finite. Therefore, God, who is non-physical, omnipotent, omniscient, etc., created the universe. So my second sentence, eternal or from nothing, infinite matter can't move. That's the false worldview of a non-theist.
Okay, again, that doesn't work. You need to have a premise. You need to have a sentence that has a truth value, and then there has to be a second sentence that follows from the first sentence that leads to a conclusion. Yours doesn't work.
Yes, I already have. The first sentence, shapes exist. The shapes are all around us. That's empirical evidence. So therefore, so what follows next is that the universe is finite. So the universe is also an object.
That's the problem. So that doesn't follow. Shapes exist or objects exist. Nothing follows from that other than objects exist.
There's only two options, sir. It's either finite or it's not finite. It's either infinite in size or it's finite.
Right. So shapes exist. They could be finite.
When you interrupt, you're not fooling me.
I'm not trying to fool you. I'm trying to stay on the point. So yes, shapes exist. They could be infinite. They could be finite, which means you can't say therefore they're infinite. You have to show one or the other. You can't just state it.
I didn't say that it's infinite. I said that it's finite.
Right. Sorry. So I got that backwards. So you can't just say it's finite. You have to prove it. Shapes exist. Correct. They could be infinite or they could be finite, which means you can't just assert they are finite. You have to give some reason.
You don't know what these definitions mean. Finite means it's limited in size. It has an edge to it, a boundary to it. So your head is finite. So to reiterate my first
wait. I think I'm understanding. So you're saying that like I am a shape and I have limits. Like I'm not infinite, right? So
yeah,
I'm finite.
You're finite in size.
Why does that mean that everything is finite?
That means that the universe, the universe is.
Yes, but the fact that I have a limit doesn't mean the universe has a limit. Like why does my limit and shape's limit mean the universe has a limit?
Because using the law of excluded middle and deduction, because an infinite universe can't have more particulars inside of itself. Therefore, the universe has to be finite.
Okay, that doesn't make sense. So I'm finite. Yes.
Hang on, sir. I was going to say there's no eluding from that. So your assertion that it doesn't make sense is just an assertion. So
no. It's like I literally cannot make sense of what you are saying. So it's not just an assertion. I literally do not understand what it is you're saying.
Hang on, sir. Are you saying that? Are you making the assertion that the universe is infinite in size?
Infinite in size, yes. The universe is infinite in size.
Okay, so how do you get stars and planets inside already infinite matter?
Because stuff in the universe is moving, even though it's infinite.
But I'm addressing the origin of this infinite matter. We're not talking about the here and now. So how do you get...
it's always existed.
Hang on, sir. How do you get finite particles in an already infinite structure without an outside prime mover?
Because it moves on its own.
What moves on its own?
The infinite space. Infinite universe.
No, the infinite space would be the infinite structure of the material.
Right.
Because the material consists of height, depth, and width.
Right.
So that debunks the claim.
No, it's just existed forever. Height, depth, and width have existed forever. Not a problem.
So to reiterate my question, in the false worldview of a non-theist, how on earth do you get more particulars inside of an already infinite structure without an outside prime mover?
It's always existed. It's always been there. It's always moving.
This is what I said. Hang on, wait. This is what I said earlier, that Tom is alluding to the conclusion that all the stars and planets have already existed.
No, energy. The energy that makes the stars and planets has always existed, and it became the stars and planets.
No, because that infinite structure it would just be one giant shape of something. You can't have multiple shapes inside of it. If you're making the assertion that infinite structure formed itself, that would mean that the infinite structure would have formed into... That's just the second law of thermodynamics, what I said earlier.
What?
Is that... hang on, I'm almost finished. You're referencing entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. So the only movement you would get, the change of form that you would get is energy converting into matter. So that still doesn't get you out of zero, because an infinite structure of matter can't do anything. So you're still, the non-theists are still stuck at zero.
No, so the second law of thermodynamics only applies to closed systems. Energy has always existed. The first law of thermodynamics says energy cannot be created or destroyed, so God can't create energy, it's always existed.
I know what these laws are, sir.
Okay, what are the four laws of the thermodynamics?
See, now you're alluding.
No, you said you know what they were. What are the four laws of thermodynamics?
Hang on.
You said you knew what they were. You said you knew what they were.
You're trying to elude from this question.
No, you said you knew what they were. How is this an illusion? You said you knew what they were.
To go back to my original point.
So you don't know what they are.
The only movement that you would get in a non-theistic worldview is energy converting into matter. But
if energy converts to matter, it can then move. It then has gravity. It then has mass. It can then interact with other matter. It can then produce hydrogen and oxygen and lithium, and it can form stars. So as soon as energy converts to matter, you then get a universe. If you get enough matter, you get a universe.
No, because that's just an assertion, because you can't have... Do you know what stars and planets are? You can't have...
They're made of matter, yes.
Hang on. An infinite structure of matter can't make finite particulars inside of itself.
If energy can convert to matter, then yes, it can. So you said in a non-theistic universe, you can have energy convert to matter. That's all you need. You get the whole universe just from that.
No, but there are stars and planets. The infinite structure of matter is singular. You can't have different multiple particulars inside of itself. And not only that... So
energy is infinite. Energy is infinite. Matter is not infinite. Matter is a specific form of energy. So you can have infinite energy, and then it can bottle up into like a string, like a knot together to produce matter just fine. So matter isn't infinite. energy is infinite, and energy can be like a string. And matter is a knot in the string. So you have an infinite string just going on forever, and there can be a knot in the string right in the middle, and then you get a particle. And you have another knot, and you have two particles. And the two particles combine together to create hydrogen or helium. So you can get all those with infinite energy, finite particles. I don't see what you're saying here.
I don't know what you're saying is so this goes back to my second sentence, is that in a non-theistic worldview, eternal or from nothing, infinite matter / energy can't move to make more particular.
Sure it can. Energy can move just fine in infinite space. No problem.
But the energy is the space.
Yes, that's correct. So the energy is the space.
I mean, you just contradicted yourself, because if you're saying, because infinite matter, infinite energy, if you're saying that this imaginary space exists, that would automatically put the infinite energy to a finite particular. No. So that would mean that that would mean that this space that you're alluding to would be God, because that space would be non-physical, that space would be eternal.
No, there's nothing non-physical there. It's all just physical energy. All just physical energy. Physical energy is infinite. Okay, it can continue to move infinitely.
Hang on. I'm going to debunk your message again. Sure. So if you're saying that space is physical,
yep,
there's no movement.
No, it moves just fine. There is movement in it, and it's physical movement.
How does it's because you're back to reiterate my second sentence. You're back.
Your second sentence is wrong. So space can exist and is physical and can move.
Yeah, you're back to my second sentence that infinite matter can't move.
Yes, it can. It can move just fine. It can move eternally, infinitely, and never stop moving.
So no, it's not, because for it to move, that means that it's finite in size, correct?
No, it means a part of it is finite in size. So like I can wiggle my finger and my finger is finite in size, but I can have like an infinitely long dick and that'd be fine. So I can wiggle my finger and have movement, but still not be finite.
Look, I know what you're trying. I know what you're not the first I've had this discussion with. So look, I'm trying to help you, Tom. You can't elude from the truth. So do you want me to tell you the evidence for Christianity?
I think you already have, and I think it's obviously wrong. So again, you can move a part of an object even if the object is infinite. So you can have an infinite string, and a part of the string can move.
And who's doing the moving then?
It's always moving. It's never stopped moving. It's always moving. The string itself is moving.
That means it's finite. So that means no.
I just debunked that.
Hang on, sir.
I just debunked that. So an object.
This is what I said earlier.
Wait. So an object can be infinite and move.
Hang on, sir. I'm backing.
No. You have to. This is the point. This is the point. I think.
Hang on, sir.
No. Hang on, sir. So you keep saying that an object can't be infinite and move, because if it moves, that means it's finite. I can have an infinitely long string with 3 chords. One goes right, one goes left. They go left infinitely, and one goes up. And the one goes up, it's finite, and it wiggles. It wiggles just fine. So I have an object that's infinite, and a part of it is finite and moving. There's no contradiction there. So I just proved you wrong. Here's an infinite object that can move.
There are other things I would like to do today, but you're referencing pi, the diameter, the circumference of a circle. And I've already said this to you earlier. Hang on, sir. Pi is an irrational number because the circumference of a circle is finite and is contingent on an already pre-existing infinite. I didn't
say anything about circles.
So your assertion to an infinite regress is an unlimited regress. That's why with the decimals you draw a line in between the decimals. So that's why the line is the circle expanding is unlimited.
I didn't say anything about circles or pi.
You don't know what infinite. Up the definitions of infinite and unlimited.
I just looked up the definition from a mathematics journal. It said that you were wrong about the definition. So I don't know.
No, I've got a mathematics as well. Saying that infinite is measured by size, not by numbers. So you can't just appeal to one individual. So to go to Christianity, we're jumping to theology. Okay, we're jumping to theology. So the evidence for Christianity is the colors. So shapes proves God, and colors proves the God of the Bible. Because, hang on, sir. Hang on. So the three primary colors of the color spectrum is red, yellow, and blue. Fire is also red, yellow, and blue. So to give you an illustration, in the beginning, God created. Hang on. In Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. End quote. So that means he would have created colorless matter. And then Genesis 1:3, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. End quote. So the three primary colors of red, yellow, and blue originates from light, and light originates from the eternal fire of red, yellow, and blue. So to give you, this is why I said to you, can you please have my opener ready? And I'm almost finished here, and then I'll let you respond. In Matthew chapter 25, verse 41, then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. So the key word in that verse is eternal fire. So that's where we get the red, yellow, and blue. And then going back to Genesis 1, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So color requires an outside source after the creation of matter, because light is not matter. Light can convert into matter, and this just comports with basic science that light / energy has three components: thermal energy for heat, chemical energy for matter, and electrical energy for speed.
Wait, light has chemical energy? Did you just say light has chemical energy?
I said light / energy.
So you said light has three parts, right? You said light has three components to it.
I said light / energy.
Light / energy.
Light and energy. I have to be very picky with my words.
Light is energy. It is a kind of energy. So what do you think about these? Why do you think red, blue, and green are the primary colors? What do you think makes them primary colors?
Primary means that they are independent of each other. So to elaborate on this, no two colors make red, no two colors make yellow, and no two colors make blue. You can test this out yourself with crayons, or you can go on YouTube. So to summarize this whole discussion, which should have ended in like 30 seconds, shapes proves God, and colors proves the God of the Bible. So the evidence of God has been all around you. You cannot deny shapes and colors, sir.
So that's not what primary colors means. Primary colors means any group of colors which other colors can be obtained by mixing. So red, blue, and green are just the ones we choose, but you could use other colors and get all the colors too. They just need to be like opposed colors. So green, purple, and orange.
What you're saying.
I'm just reading this off of a science journal about colors. Primary colors, definition, any group of colors from which other colors...
You didn't even know this to begin with. What is wrong with you?
What does...
So I have to reiterate.
So primary colors are any group of colors from which other colors can be obtained by mixing. It's not colors that can't be obtained by mixing. They're colors that can be obtained by mixing. So, but it's not... Red, blue, and green are only the primary colors we choose. They're not like magic. I don't know why you keep like referencing them.
When you mix, hang on, I have to educate you on colors. When you mix red, yellow, and blue, you get the full color spectrum.
No, you get brown, but
okay.
If you mix red, yellow, and blue, you get brown.
Means?
So
I have to clarify things with you now.
So red, yellow, and blue are three colors that, if you mix in different proportions, can produce all of the other colors on the visual spectrum. Yes. But so could any of the other primary colors. So like green.
The secondary colors, blue and yellow.
Yes. So any combination of the primary colors can be used to make other primary colors. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Primary means that colors makes.
You said it can't be, but okay.
No, I didn't. I have to reiterate. I'm not just talking to you. I'm addressing the listeners as well. No two colors make red, no two colors make yellow, and no two colors make blue. So in context of
Yeah, you said can't. You just said can't.
Hang on. So in context to what I was saying earlier, those three primary colors originate from the eternal fire of red, yellow, and blue. So if you don't know colors, you may not know the evidence behind fire. So 600 degrees to reach the color red, 1200 degrees to reach the color, 1400 degrees to reach the color blue. So there's no getting around that. The evidence.
There's also purple and God, green and yellow.
Purple is red and blue.
Right. So you can get like essentially any color you want from fire. It's not just red, blue, and green. Red, blue, and green are just frequencies of light.
But you need the fire first to add things to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we took fire and fire existed and then we like slow it down, like if we just move away from it faster, it'll be more red. And if we move closer to it, it'll be more blue. Like what I don't have any idea how this
still exists.
Yes. Fire exists.
The colors still exist.
Fire exists. So
look,
color is frequencies of light.
I want to ask.
I mean, you can't get ultraviolet light from combining red, green, and blue.
Hang on. What is your problem with our Father God? That's a genuine question, Tom.
The Christian one, well, the mass murder is kind of a problem. The murdering, drowning millions of babies, the killing people for no reason, the disagreement, mass murder, genocide. Those are problems I have, but I still have no idea how you get God from colors. That makes no sense.
That's the God of the Bible. Shapes proves God.
Shapes proves God.
To address your concern of morality. And we won't go too far deep into this because there's other things I want to do. Because God is eternal, He in the lake of fire. So it's almost a mercy killing. Because if he's potentially saving life, if he knows, hang on, because he knows those going to the lake of fire. So if he knows these people going to the lake of fire, why would he not flood the world? If these people are especially these children, if they're going to grow up to become sinners, why is that an issue for God to flood the world?
Because he's drowning millions of babies without their consent. So it's evil and immoral. But I still want to know, like, colors are an illusion produced by the human brain. They don't actually exist. So what is this colors thing you keep referencing? I don't get how colors prove
hang on,
Jesus.
You jump from one point to the other.
Well, yeah, because I still want to talk about the colors. Like, how do colors prove Jesus? I don't get it.
To summarize, God shapes proves God, and colors proves the God of the Old and New Testaments. And I'll just reiterate is that this is why I said, Tom, just have the opener ready.
The opener would not help me.
Things.
The opener would not in any way help.
Hang on, sir. The three primary colors of the color spectrum are red, yellow, and blue. Color originates from light, and light originates from the eternal fire of red, yellow, and blue.
What eternal fire? There's no eternal fire.
We're on theology. You can't jump back to cosmology because
what? So
you can't deny shades. We're on theology, sir.
So objects exist, yes. Colors are a result of light, yes. None of this has anything to do with a God.
So the discussion of shades was a cosmological discussion. So that from there, we understand.
Colors are also cosmological.
Hang on, sir. We understand that God exists through shapes.
No,
and then once we come to that realization, we then move on to theology. So now we're on theology, and the colors of these shapes proves the God of the Old and New Testament.
Yeah, so I still asked how like 5 minutes ago, and then you just said a bunch of gibberish that didn't answer the question. How exactly do colors prove Jesus?
It proves God of the Old and New Testament.
How?
You don't need to see somebody to know that they exist. You haven't seen George Washington.
Okay. So I'm still on the how. How do colors prove Jesus, or the God of the Old and New Testament? How do colors prove Jesus, or the Christian God, the Christian anything?
It proves that Moses had communication with God. Because Moses couldn't have, hang on, sir, because Moses couldn't have possibly known the three primary colors of the color spectrum and light.
So
he
colors
hang on,
prove Moses. What?
Theology now.
So Moses didn't even exist, first of all. The consensus of historians is Moses didn't exist. But I still don't see how, even if Moses existed, how that has anything to do with colors, or how colors do anything to show the Christian God of the Old Testament is true.
Because of the eternal fire.
What does that mean?
Genesis 1.
What does that mean? So how does colors show there's an eternal fire?
Because God is perfect and love, he will not mislead his people with the three primary colors. And not only that, there's evidence of Adam and Eve, there's evidence of blood.
In colors. And this is all from colors.
The evidence of colors you cannot deny. It's all around you.
Colors don't exist. Colors are illusions made by the human brain. How does this have anything to do with God?
Are you listening to yourself?
Yes.
Color is light.
Yeah, light
Genesis
exists.
1:3.
Light colors are just our eyes' way of differentiating different frequencies of light, but the frequencies don't actually have color. This is how our brains interpret it. So color doesn't actually exist. It's a product of our brains from different frequencies of light. Frequencies of light exist.
It's the light. That's what I said to you.
So
Genesis 1:3. I said, to reiterate again, the three primary colors of the color spectrum, red, yellow, and blue, originates from light.
Right.
And light originates from the eternal fire of red, yellow, and
So you're saying light exists, and the only way light could exist was if it was created by some eternal fire thing, and it wasn't. That's because it's the only way it could have possibly existed. That's your evidence or something?
Yeah, we're on theology, sir. That is the evidence. Yes.
Yes, so light can come about without an eternal fire. Problem solved.
No, that's just an assertion. We're on.
No. You said is an assertion.
Hang on, you're trying to reset.
I can create light with a flashlight. I don't need an eternal fire to do it.
We're talking about the origins.
Yeah, I can create light from nothing with a flashlight, with no light to light.
But you're the consciousness behind that light, correct?
There's no consciousness behind that light. It's a flashlight. Flashlights don't have consciousness. All I'm doing is pressing the button.
But you're the one flicking on the light switch?
Yes, I'm flicking the light switch. I can make it stop. I can just throw it at the wall and the wall can flick it. But so light can be created just fine with no eternal fire.
So to go back to what I was going to say earlier, God, who is an infinite consciousness, is the necessary prime mover for there to be shapes and colors.
No, so that isn't the case. You don't need a necessary prime mover. It's totally made up shit that no one in philosophy or science accepts. But more importantly, you can have light without an eternal fire. You don't need an eternal fire to create light.
So you just gave your opinion.
No, I gave the opinion of the majority of scientists in every academic field. That's their opinion.
You don't know the consensus. Why are you appealing to authority? You don't know the consensus.
I do know the consensus. I actually have the papers.
Well, then send it through. It doesn't even matter because it's
Phil Survey's paper. That's the philosophy one. The physics one is a contemporary view of standard physics. That's the physics one. There's one in history. There's a number of history ones I have saved in my new book. There's some in biology. I have the ones from Julian Mussolino about neurology and cognitive science. I have them all. They're freely available in all of my different debates I mentioned.
It's a fallacy.
What's a fallacy?
It's a fallacy because
what's a fallacy?
Data is available for everyone. So depending on
what's a fallacy?
Worldview, that's how they would. Hang on, sir.
You said it's a fallacy. What's a fallacy?
Depending on the individual's worldview.
What is a fallacy?
They interpret the data differently.
What is a fallacy?
And the thing is,
what is the fallacy?
The thing is,
name the fallacy.
Hang on. You don't know if these
stop. Go back. You said there's a problem. You said there's a fallacy. So what's the fallacy? What's the problem? You point out the problem. Which fallacy?
You're appealing You can't appeal to authority.
Okay, stop right there. Appeal to authority. Wait, stop. An appeal to authority fallacy is only fallacious if it's a false authority. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy fallacies number 9, appeal to authority. So appealing to the actual consensus of experts is not an appeal to authority fallacy. That is not a fallacy. What is a fallacy?
But I can just do the same thing. I could just appeal to the authority of mine. It doesn't.
No, you can't, because the consensus only indicates one thing. There's only one consensus. You can't do it. You could try. You're not going to fail. So there's not a fallacy at all.
The atheists are below 7% worldwide.
Yes, and they make up the majority of academics.
No, if you go on Google, you can Google this yourself. Atheists and agnostics as well are below around 7%.
Yeah. So again, those papers, the papers I sent you. Remember. Wait. So remember, I told you about those papers, the Phil surveys paper. It's the biggest survey of philosophers in the world, and it shows that 72% of philosophers are atheists. The people who have the majority of academics are atheists. So the consensus shows that you're wrong. Like, there are lots of random people who are theists, but when you go to academia, they're mostly atheists because all the evidence does not indicate a God. It indicates a not God.
You have. I doubt you actually have those pages.
Wait. Go to Google right now. Go to Google. Phil surveys paper.
All these groups.
Phil surveys paper results. Google. You can find it right now. You can also, if you want, I have the physics one ready for you. I can tell you how to Google that one. I have the history ones ready for you. I can tell you how to Google those. All of these I have. You can search them yourself.
Why don't you just send them through, Tom? Why don't you just send them through?
Send them through where? Like, they're posted on the Discord. They're on the Discord. If you go to papers, academic papers, there is a section on the Discord where they are posted for you to see.
And the thing is, it doesn't matter because you people are.
Well, that proves it's not a fallacy. Wait.
You don't know
the worldview thing.
You don't know if
they're satanic people, right? They're satanic. So wait. So no. I understand your argument. You said this a few times. You said we don't know that they're satanic or devil worshippers or whatever. That is actually a fallacy. That's called an appeal to motive fallacy. Their motive doesn't make a difference to the truth or falsity of what they're saying. So you can't say they could be devil worshippers, therefore you can't take them seriously, because that is a fallacy.
I can turn that around. Hang on.
Go for it. Did he leave?
No, I muted him.
Why'd you mute him? Unmute him. Is he still muted? Unmute him.
No, he's unmuted.
Oh, okay.
Hang on. Was I muted?
Yeah, one of the mods muted you. It wasn't me. My apologies for that.
Well, I have to.
Well,
I'll just say. Hang on. Just let me claim. Is that?
Yeah, I wanted to catch up on
that argument. That's like me saying that why isn't the majority then all atheists? Because it all stems back to the individual's worldview.
So again,
you don't know if these people are apatheists or not.
So again, that's called an appeal to motive fallacy. That is a fallacy. That does not work.
But I can turn that around on you as well. Why isn't? I still doubt these papers you're sending me, and it doesn't even matter. Why isn't the majority, all of them, of these academics all atheists?
You don't need universal agreement, but that's not an appeal to motive. So an appeal to motive fallacy is saying someone has a motive to do something, therefore what they're saying is wrong. So I never said that. You said that, so you're wrong. That's a fallacy.
Yeah,
but I didn't say that.
Lie. That's why.
Right.
They are apatheists or not.
That's called an appeal to motive fallacy. You can't do that.
But look, there's no denying. You can't deny the 7% of atheists worldwide. You can't deny shapes and colors.
I never said I did deny either of those things.
Concerns you have any with me?
So I agree shapes and colors exist. I agree. I don't know what the actual percent of atheists are, but yes, it's small. But none of that supports your position. Shapes and colors don't indicate a God or the Christian God. They exist perfectly fine in a natural worldview of perfectly just eternal natural energy stuff that can move and be eternal, no problem, like the majority of physicists agree. Do you have any other points that you want to bring up?
You're the one who brought up You're the one who brought up the census. So now you're trying to start the whole discussion again.
Well, no, you asked. You specifically asked about that.
No, you make assertions and then you bring up so many points. because you try to elude from your first original point.
Well, you just said your points were that shapes and colors exist, and that the atheists. I can't deny that shapes and colors exist, and I can't deny that atheists are 7% of the population. So I addressed those 3 points. I said yes, shapes and colors exist. They don't indicate a god, and yes, I assume atheists are about 7%. That's probably about right, and none of that helps your position. So yes, I agree. All 3 of those things. None of that indicates a god.
So if you take a solid shape, okay.
Yes.
Without an outside intervention, how do you get more solid shapes inside of it?
It moves on its own, so it's not solid.
But then why wouldn't the whole shape move? Why wouldn't it just be a one brand new particular instead of multiple particulae?
Because there are multiples. Like if you have 2 particles and they both exist, then they're not one, they're 2. They're 2 different things.
But we're talking about a singular particular.
No, there's 2. There's 2 different particles. They're not singular.
This is just an analogy, sir.
Right. Like, so in this analogy, we have a universe with 2 particles. There isn't one particle. There's 2 particles, and they're both moving.
In the here and now, yes. In between stars and planets is hydrogen and helium.
Yeah, I'm saying this universe is eternal. It's a different universe. It's always existed. It just has 2 particles, and they're both moving around. They've never come in contact with one another. They're just jumping around the universe in different parts, and they're eternally moving. It's just a universe with 2 moving particles, infinitely.
You're not making any sense, sir. So,
okay, how does that not make sense?
I said this earlier.
How does it not make sense to imagine a universe?
I'm getting to that point.
Okay.
So, and I think you said this earlier. Are you saying that the universe, the cosmos of all the stars and planets, that they've always existed?
The cosmos has already existed. The stars and planets have not existed. So the energy that makes the stars and planets has always existed. And then they made the stars and planets from fluctuations in the movement of the energy.
No, because you would see one giant star instead of multiple stars.
No, so again, I can have a universe.
Is that infinite?
I can have a universe with two particles that are just separate and never one, and they're both infinitely moving, and they're both infinitely separate, and they never come in contact, and that's perfectly fine. You can have 2 stars that are both infinitely moving and not one star in the universe, and they're just infinitely there, not a problem.
No, because then even if you make that assertion, then you would just get 2 giant objects, not multiple objects.
2 means multiple.
There are trillions of stars out there.
Yes, so if you can do it with 2, you can do it with 3, you can do it with 4, you can do it with trillions. You get the same result in every case. You can have a universe with 1 trillion stars that are all separate and never contact one another and are all moving and are all infinite. That's perfectly fine.
Well, there you go. That's what I was trying to get across, is that you're saying that the universe and all the stars and planets have always existed.
The energy that makes them has always existed.
But there's no movement in that. I could freely move my arms.
Right. So there's movement. There's trillions of stars. They're all infinite. They're all moving, and there's no problem with that.
You don't know what infinite means. I think that's where the problem is.
What do you think infinite means?
Infinite means at all places at the same time.
That's omnipresent. That's not infinite.
In regards to God, yes, the universe.
So if you're saying
is finite,
there can be,
and God is infinite.
So if energy is omnipresent,
He's omnipresent in the universe.
So in a naturalistic universe, you can have energy that's omnipresent at every point and have 2 particles at 2 different points, and they're not omnipresent. So energy is omnipresent. It's infinite by your definition. Particles are not infinite. They're not omnipresent. They're just a single point in the infinite omnipresent energy.
So then I'll play your game. So then what is in between those 2 particulars there?
The energy.
So that would leave you with 1 particular.
No, there's one, like, substance, multiple particulars. So like water is
what is in between those particulars?
The substance of energy. So it's like a string.
So then you're back to 1 particular.
No, you can have multiples. Like if you have a string with 2 beads on it, you got 3 things there. 2 beads, 1 string.
So what is in between these particulars?
So you have two beads, those are the particulars, and there's a string, and the string is in between the two beads.
Yeah, but that's just one particular.
That's three particulars. There's two beads, one string.
No, we're addressing the origin. We're not talking.
Yeah, so I'm saying these are all eternal. So you have an eternal string, two eternal beads. The two beads are connected by the string, and they're all eternal and moving. And
So you're going back to your fantasy that the universe and all the stars and planets have always existed. There's no movement in that worldview, sir.
The beads are moving. The string is moving. They're all eternal. They're all moving. Where's the problem?
But it's infinite in size. There's no movement.
Yeah. The string is infinite in size, and it's still moving.
I can debunk your claim just by moving my arms around.
Strings can be infinitely long and still move. Like water moves just fine, even though it occupies all the space.
Don't you?
Right.
You're
No. I agree. So you're present. Your definition of omnipresent. Strings can be omnipresent and still move. It can still move just fine.
So for the listeners, Tom is alluding to the universe always existing, all the stars and planets.
I'm not alluding to it. I'm explicitly saying it.
But to debunk that position is that there is movement. Therefore, the universe is finite.
No, movement does not debunk that. Try again.
Yes, it does, sir.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
The universe is finite. Therefore, there is movement.
Nope. The universe is infinite, and there is
no
movement. There's infinite universe, and there's movement. Debunked. I've just debunked your argument.
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're going back to a finite universe.
No, it's infinite universe, infinite movement, infinite energy. Perfectly fine.
So then if this goes back to, because the moment you say that it's moving, that means something. So that something exists.
Yep, particles exist. There's infinite energy, and their particles are moving in the infinite energy, and there's no problem with that.
You're saying that an infinite structure of matter is moving.
Yes.
That means it's moving into something else.
No.
Therefore, that infinite structure is now automatically shifted into a finite structure.
No, I can take a wheel and spin it. It's not moving into something else. It's still in the exact same spot. It's just changing position in the exact same spots. So you can have omnipresent energy changing positions like flowing water, and it's still occupying all the same space. So you can have flowing water in the same space. It never occupies new space. There's not a problem here.
Look, just for the listeners, the reason why I'm a dragon is because I've sent Tom my opener a week ago. So he knows this opener already. So I am comporting with 2 Timothy chapter 25, is that opponents must be gently instructed in the hope that God will grant them repentance, leading them to the knowledge of the truth. So this is not a sneak attack on Tom. He already knows my opener. I've sent my opener multiple times to him.
That's fine. So again, you can have an object like a wheel, and the wheel can spin in the exact same position, and it doesn't change space, and it can move, occupying no new space. Water can move. There can be flows of water, even though it occupies all the same space. So you can have something that occupies all the space and moves just fine. It doesn't occupy any new space.
So then what is beyond the edge of that wheel?
Nothing, just infinitely water. Infinitely, in the water example, infinitely water.
Do you listen to yourself, sir? I said, what is beyond that edge of that wheel?
The wheel example is just the wheel can move in place without occupying new space. The same thing is true with water. So
beyond the edge of that wheel, would it be physical or non-physical?
Yeah, it would be like an infinite wheel. It's just infinitely wheel everywhere that keeps going on, just bigger and bigger wheel, and the wheel can just keep spinning. It's just infinitely wheels in all direction.
That's not so you're saying you're talking about an unlimited wheel that it will never reach an end?
No, I'm saying a wheel that is omnipresent. So there's an omnipresent wheel, and the wheel can spin, and it's fine. There's no contradiction there.
Look, your attempt of trying, I don't know if you're trying, but you out of me
Where's
no human? I don't get jealous. Hang on, I don't get jealous, sir. No human will ever get a reaction out of it. So your attempt of trolling here is fine because because there is an audience.
Okay.
So
where's
addressing
the contradiction?
well.
Where's the contradiction in a wheel, an infinite wheel that is spinning? The entire thing, the entire infinity of the entire thing is spinning and moving. How is that a contradiction?
That's your analogy, because beyond that, it would still be something.
No, it's infinite wheel, all spinning. The entire thing, the infinite omnipresent thing, is itself spinning. How is that a contradiction? Someone's got
because if you're standing just centimeters away from the edge of that wheel,
there's no edge.
You'll see something.
It's omnipresent.
Then it's infinite in size.
Yes, it's infinite in size. It's an infinite wheel, and it's spinning.
Yeah, but it's not you're still stuck in the non-theistic worldview. Going back to my second sentence, an infinite structure of matter can't move to get the Big Bang.
It's spinning.
And
the Big Bang.
Can't move.
It's spinning, so it's moving.
Can't move.
It's spinning. It's moving. So you can't say it can't move. It's spinning.
Well, then I'll just rephrase it. Then it can't do it. It can't make more particulars inside of itself.
If it's spinning and the parts inside of it hit each other, then they can break apart. They can create new particles. They can interact with one another. Like the wheel can break. Like one part of the wheel spins at one speed and one part of it spins at a different speed, and they breaks apart and creates new parts. Yes, it can. No problem there.
And for something to be spinning infers that it's a shape. It's finite.
Nope, it's infinite. It's omnipresent and it's spinning. There's no problem there.
No, because there's no movement to begin with. It's
all spinning. It's all spinning, and different parts of it are moving at different speeds. Not a problem.
No. So even if you make that assertion, you can't particulars inside of it.
I just proved that false.
I don't know what you're trying to do here.
So a wheel can spin, and different parts are spinning at different speeds, and then they break apart and create new particulars. Proved you false.
No, because that would just be giant particular, not multiple particles. There are trillions upon trillions of stars and planets.
Yes, so
you go outside and look back.
So a wheel is made of trillions and trillions of particles. If one part of the wheel is spinning at one speed and a different part of the wheel is spinning at a different speed, those particles are going to break apart and make lots and lots of new little particles that are not a part of the wheel anymore. Trillions of them.
No, because that particular would still consist of the already infinite particular. Because then you have
yes,
to
you have an infinite particular, which is then made of lots of different parts.
So
there was one
you're
thing.
Still stuck with one particular that can't do anything.
Nope, the one particular is moving, infinite wheel, an all omnidirectional wheel, and it's spinning at different speeds, so it breaks apart into lots and lots of different things, and they all interact and make new things. Not a problem.
No, because for it to be spinning means that there's an already pre-existing infinite.
Nope.
Outside of that wheel. That's why I said to you.
So
earlier,
I've already debunked this. So my analogy completely destroys you. So I'm going to need to go pretty soon. So I didn't say anything about pi. I'm sorry, sir, but you're kind of done. So I've destroyed your argument. I need to pee. And thank you for the debates. You've been debunked. Debunked. All right. Thank you for the debate, sir. I appreciate your $50. You've been debunked.
So, do I have your permission to post it?
Yeah, you can post it wherever you want. Knock yourself out.
Okay.
I'll be back in. I gotta pee.
Well, that was my intention. But look, I sent you the opener. This is not a sneak attack on you, Tom.
Bro, he's not even here. Please stop.
Yeah, so does anyone else want to have any questions for me before I go?
That was not funny.
Are you Adam?
Philip, I'm a little confused. Could you explain something to me?
Yes. Who's speaking?
Red.
Okay.
Okay, so you said infinity implies the absence of motion, right?
Infinite. In a non-theistic worldview.
Wait, why?
Because that infinite consists of all the space, has height, depth, and width.
Wait, but why does infinity imply the absence of motion? I guess I'm a little confused there.
I'll just reiterate, in a non-theistic worldview, the infinite structure of material occupies all the space, because that space is height, depth, and width.
Okay.
And not only that, energy, in a non-theistic worldview, energy is colorless. So even in a non-theistic world, you would still see an immaterial, eternal God, because through that colorless structure, you would still see something.
So, like,
well, that was interesting.
You're saying that infinite structure implies the absence of motion in virtue of already encompassing everything? Is that what you're saying?
I'll just reiterate. So,
yes,
in
that's
a
what he's saying.
non-theistic worldview, infinite matter cannot move to get the Big Bang, and it cannot move to make more particulars inside of it. You can.
Why not?
Because there's no room for it to do anything. And
Why?
there would just be one giant, there wouldn't be any life to begin with.
I want to go back to that first thing you said. You said that nothing would be able to move. I'm just confused as to why that's the case.
Yeah, so I'll just send you the message. I'll send you my opener. Just give me a few seconds.
Sure.
Because I don't like to do sneak attacks. But what were you saying, Red?
I'm just saying, like, I'm confused by why an infinite material structure would imply the absence of motion, like it would. At least, like, there's some contradiction that concludes from that.
No, because an infinite structure is at all places at the same time. So therefore, for it to take shape into a sphere or a cylinder, that whole structure would then turn its whole self into a shape. There wouldn't be multiple shapes inside of that already structure.
Well, I don't see how that implies the absence of motion, even if true.
Even if you make that assertion, the only motion that you will get is energy converting into.
Wait, I thought a minute ago you said that an infinite material structure on a non-theistic view implies an absence of motion. Now you're saying there is motion.
Oh, well, the change of form. But that's why I said to you, even if you make that assertion of movement, you still can't get multiple shapes inside an already infinite structure. Therefore, this universe was created outside of its contingent on God, who is eternal and infinite in size. He is an infinite consciousness. Okay. And you can test this out yourself. We are made in God's image. So if you close your eyes, your thoughts have no boundaries. That explains his infinite size. You can visualize anything. That explains his omnipotence and his eternal nature. Is like entering a dream. It's like when you're in a dream, you just are. You don't question how you got into that dream. You just are in that dream. God just is. He's not a human. It says that in the Bible, like word for word, that he is not human. And this is back in Matthew chapter 25, verse 41, about the eternal fire. So then he was, apart from me, you who are cursed into the eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. So God's true form is infinite fire with a consciousness.
Tom, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. What's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to.
I want to keep on this guy preaching here. I mean,
Yeah, we can move on. If anybody else has got any questions, I'm probably gonna get some dinner in about 10 minutes anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you one more question for you guys. I just wanted to say one last thing to Philip. I was just saying, like, it sounded like a moment ago you were just saying that it implied the absence of motion and just admitted there is motion. So I'll let the audience, think on that one. But anyways, yo, what's up, Tom?
Yeah, I brought that exact point up like I think 40 minutes ago. But
yeah.
so anyway, other questions? Anybody got?
Yeah.
Red's been very patiently waiting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Red, sorry.
Yeah. Hang on. I'll just say one thing before I go.
Go for it, man.
Is that 2 points actually? So about the movement. Like if it's moving, that means it's reaching something. If something's moving, that means that it's reaching something. So that means it's not infinite to begin with. And just to address the apatheists in here, an apatheist is someone who knows that God exists, however, doesn't care. You have to understand.
All right, dude.
Hang on.
No.
All right, let's
No, just
move
let
on.
me say this.
Like you're repeating yourself. You've heard this before. You don't need to hear it.
Stepped in deeper puddles. Shut the fuck up.
All right. Anybody else got any questions?